Now, when you're introducing corals to your aquarium, it's important to play around with the position of the coral, but not too much. So if you place a coral in your aquarium, give it about 3 to 4 weeks to see how the coral responds. If the coral seems to be opening really happy and responding really well, then you have no reason to move that coral. If for some reason you're concerned because the coral's not opening enough, or it's only half opening, or there's any issue like that, I'll usually recommend dipping the coral in Revive and then moving it to another position. And when you're moving it to another position, you've got to consider what the corals are around it. For example, you can put Euphyllia species together, but don't put them near acroporas. You can put any sort of fluffies together, you can put leathers together. So grouping corals is a really good point, because you can group corals and get a lot more coral in your tank. If you're putting all different corals scattered everywhere, eventually it's hard to put more coral in your tank because they sting each other. So when you are moving your corals, you've got to be considerate of what you're putting it next to, and then you just be considerate of the amount of light and the amount of water flow the coral's getting. So some corals like Acropora, they're like very high light and very high water flow. So this would be a wonderful position, but we're going to flatten this coral out a little bit to make sure that the little stags point up. Oh, you got a little coral goby in there.
Yes, little green goby.
He's nice. So once again, if you place the coral in the aquarium, be very conscious of which way is up. The plan is to try and position the corals as much as possible so the corals are facing up. You've got to try not to have the corals facing away from the light. Have the corals facing mainly towards the light, and then be conscious of the amount of water flow the coral's getting. So if in one position and another position within the aquarium, you'll visibly see that it's got more water flow than others. So it's really just a bit of a jigsaw, a bit of a suck it and see game. Put the coral in a position, wait 3 to 4 weeks, then move it if you need to. So you don't want to go moving them too often, and in saying that, you don't want to not move a coral if the coral doesn't physically seem happy, and that's why it is really important to know what the coral should be doing.
Yeah, so this Duncan over here is out of David's tank, the little one.
Yep.
And it's over 12 months old, and it seems to be going really well. That's what I want to get this one to do.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. That Cataphilia was out of David's.
Yep.
That's over 12 months old. Seems to be going pretty good in here.
Yeah, it's loving it.
I might put that big thing with the coral moss down the bottom here somewhere. So it doesn't need
it doesn't need as much light, that's right.
And I'll lay the Acropora down, and I'll change those power jets back to the back.
Yeah, because if you have countercurrent in your aquarium, you need to have way more flow, because countercurrent not only stops the water moving in one direction, it actually reduces the energy, the kinetic energy of the pumps you've actually got. So, and which is okay if you've got heaps and heaps of water flow. If you've got about the right amount of water flow, it's pretty important to make sure that all your pumps are working with each other as opposed to against each other.